Hiya. I'm finally doing it. One of my most requested videos, and I am making it happen. And I hope you enjoy it. You probably won't, you'll probably hate it, but oh well, I tried. Richard Kirk. I'm going to get into this without much preamble because one of the reasons, it's funny, this is kind of like the global communication video I did last week. I'm surprised I haven't already done this because Richard Kirk is kind of a god to me. But I haven't done it because I just don't know where to start. I started a couple years ago, and I'm not showing records today, by the way. A couple years ago, I started getting my Richard Kirk shit together to do a video. And this is back when I always showed records. In fact, if you dig back to an old video, I can't remember what the subject was, but the album you see in my background, Electronic Eye, I have that record in the background sitting on my couch. I can't remember what the video was or what the subject was, but it was that time, a couple years ago, maybe even 3 years ago at this point. I was getting ready to do my Richard Kirk video, and I started pulling out all his records. and I was like, I can't do this. I'm going to be sitting here for 5 hours talking about this guy's music. And this is prior to him dying, and then he died. And I thought about doing a video when he died, but then I hate it when somebody dies and then everyone all of a sudden is a huge fan of this person. You know what I'm saying? Like when I worked at Discogs, like when Prince died, all of a sudden everybody loved Prince and everyone was scrambling to buy Prince albums and everyone was talking about what a genius he was. And um, I hate that. I hate that. It's like the death cell. David Bowie dies, and all of a sudden everyone's a fan, and everyone thinks he's a genius, and people are scrambling to buy his records. I didn't want to do that with Richard Kirk. I just think it's in poor taste. I know I've always been a fan, and I didn't want to do it. So here I am, 2 odd years later after he died, or when did he die? Was it a year and a half ago? I don't know. I know it's been at least a year. Actually, I guess I could just look at his Discogs page here. He died September 2021. Wow. Okay. So, yeah, I guess that Electronic Eye album sitting on my couch in the background was 3 years ago now. So there you go. Or 4 years ago, maybe. Well, whenever. I don't know. Some point back, some point in the distant past, I almost did it. I can't believe he's been gone for that long. I thought it was just a couple years ago. Wow. Time flies, y'all, especially the last 5 years. The COVID years, right? Holy shit. Wow. Yeah, time's gone by really fast. Richard Kirk. As always, I will talk about my history with him, what he means to me, and I'll talk about, rather than talking about every record I have from him, which are like, seriously, that many records. I mean, I probably have 200 Richard Kirk related records. It's ridiculous. And I don't even think I have everything from him. Maybe I do. But I'm going to talk about, 10 or maybe a dozen of my favorite releases from him. Because I think Richard Kirk had, the guy recorded music for, he was actively putting things out for over 40 years. I mean, the dude was around a long time. I think his golden period was the early mid 90s, 1990 through like 1998. It was that period where everything kind of came together. He had taken everything he had learned with Cabaret Voltaire, and then he was venturing out into his own solo work. And the dude was on fire. I think he consistently put great shit out until the day he died, but I think basically throughout the 90s is the golden era of Richard Kirk. The guy was on fire, and he had so many different names he recorded under, but it didn't really matter because he always had that sound. Like you could tell it was him. It's so hard to do that, especially in electronic music. It's so hard to kind of stick out and have your own unique sound. Especially with him. I mean, look at all these names here. he adventured into techno and pop and dub and industrial and ambient and you name it. He did it all. But it always sounded like him. You know what I mean? That little synth line, the synthesizer work he did, those little noises he came up with. It was you could listen to it for 30 seconds. It didn't matter if it was any of these names, and if you had no idea it was Richard Kirk, you'd hear that little sound, that synthesizer sound, and you're like, oh yeah, it's Richard Kirk. You could just tell. His productions were always kind of dirty too. I don't mean dirty in the sexual sense, although they could be that sometimes, but um, his production was kind of muddy, which was also something you didn't really hear a lot of in electronic dance music. Usually with electronic dance music, it needs to be nailed down. It needs to be shiny and new and shimmering and glistening and really tight. But Kirk was kind of a lot of times he was the antithesis of that. He would make a very complex, emotional electronic music, but then his productions were they weren't sloppy. I don't want to say they were sloppy, but they were looser, a little grimier, a little more industrial. That was the spin he put on it. And that was one of the reasons why you could tell it was him. He had his own sound. And man, I loved him. One of my, if I did a top 20 list of electronic producers, he would absolutely be in there, maybe even top 10. He was extremely prolific. I mean, his whole career, the dude put out stuff all the time, especially in the 90s. He was always putting out something. And when he put out something, it was usually something pretty substantial. Like the record in the back, behind me, a 4-record set. Cabaret, Voltaire, The Conversation, a 4-record set. Richard Kirk, Virtual State, a double album. These are all albums he put out within the same year. I mean, the guy was putting out quadruple, double, 12 inches, all within a couple of years of each other. And guess what? They're all amazing. I mean, the dude was on a roll, man. He was on fire. Again, I think the 90s, especially the early to mid 90s, are his golden period. This is an opinion. You don't like my opinion? There's the door, and I do hope it hits you on the ass on the way out. You either accept my opinion or you don't, and you move on. These are my opinions. So my introduction to Richard Kirk, I don't really know. I think when I think back, I think it was Cabaret Voltaire, obviously. I think it was the Here to Go single. Remember the Code album? That was like 86, 87. I had been exposed to his music accidentally, peripherally, on the radio and here and there. Maybe someone I went to school with was playing them in the background or something in that vein, but I didn't know I was hearing him. The first memory I have of actually hearing and being conscious of it, hearing a Richard Kirk related song, I think was Here to Go, that 12-inch he did from the Code album. And not particularly a Cabaret Voltaire album that is memorable, but it's pretty good. In fact, well, as you can see here all of his Discogs separates the groups he was in when he was working with other people, and then all of his aliases that you need more. These are all of his names that he used on his own when he recorded solo. Look at all this. In fact, I'm looking at a few of these, and I don't even know some of these. Like, I've got most of this stuff, but the Revolutionary Army of the Infant Jesus, like, I have no idea what that is. So, yeah, I don't have everything he's done. Yeah. I'll go through this stuff and talk about my favorites, but obviously, most of us know Richard Kirk from Cabaret Voltaire. Sorry for the slowness. I am using Discogs after all. It's not like they won't have any interest in optimizing their website. What are you kidding? Why would they do that? Their website works just fine. You just ask their staff, they'll tell you. Or maybe they won't tell you. You know how their communication is with their community. Yeah, it's great, isn't it? So, oh, by the way, there's Johnny Yes now. One of my main, one of my main men. Someone who watches my channel. He comments. He's a hell of a guy. One of my best supporters. He calls himself Johnny Yeshno. This is where he got that. I assume. I mean, I can only assume. Yeah, this album right here, 1987, Code. Pretty sure this was my intro to Richard Kirk, the world of Richard Kirk. And as I always did, this was kind of an interesting time to become a fan of his too, because as you see, it's 1987. There wasn't another Cabaret Voltaire album until Groovy, Laid Back, and Nasty. This was around the time that Kirk really started throwing down and making rave music and house and techno music. Code is kind of the end of his 80s. Well, it is here in the Cabaret Voltaire world. It's the end of his 80s kind of industrial pop thing that he did. But as always, when I heard Code, I moved my way backwards. I mean, I was only like 14 years old here, so, but I did move back, and I exposed myself to all of this music. I mean, literally. Although maybe I did expose myself. I don't know. I put my trench coat on. I peeled off my underpants, and I exposed myself. It's possible. I'm not saying I didn't do it. I'll let you figure that one out. That's a mystery for you to solve. But I went back and I discovered all this shit. And I liked it. I just remember when you're that age, you're just kind of exposing yourself to so much different types of music. So this was different. I think in my tiny brain, my 14-year-old brain, when I heard all this stuff, it was hard to listen to. It was a hard entry point for me, but it grew on me. But I do remember when I first heard, and I remember this was the first Cabaret Voltaire album that came out while I was paying attention. Groovy, Laid Back, and Nasty. This sounds okay. I like it. It's good. Not my favorite. In fact, most of this early Cabaret Voltaire stuff I've never been a massive fan of, but I do like it. It was this. It was Body and Soul where I started. I was like, oh, wow, okay. I mean, in my opinion, this is where Richard Kirk really started going in the rave direction, full-on house and techno world. Like, he was embracing it. And it was good timing for me because this was all the same time I was getting into that shit, too. I started DJing right here in this year, 1990. And so this was the period where I really was like, okay, Richard Kirk, I am focused on this guy now. He has my undivided and complete attention. And Body and Soul came out, and I remember really loving this album and the 12 inches that came from it. It was like, okay, I hope he keeps going in this direction. He absolutely did. But this was the other name that meant a lot to me right around the time Body and Soul came out. It was this. Sweet Exorcist. And to this day, I'm still a huge fan of Richard Barrett. Richard Barrett, also known as Parrot, you'll know him from Sweet Exorcist. He produced the Roisin Murphy album a few years ago, the really, really excellent one. Not the most recent one, but 2 albums back. He also was in the All Seeing Eye, which is their one album is one of my favorites, Pickled Eggs and Sherbet. This guy is a star as well, a great producer. These two hooked up on Sweet Exorcist. Excuse me. And this was huge for me. And so, and you'll see these came out in 89, 90, 91. This was the shit I remember thinking, why doesn't Richard Kirk do more of this? Why is he not doing this? Because Cabaret Voltaire didn't sound the same, obviously. It was different. But he veered off and started doing this stuff. And honestly, the first Richard Kirk-related records that really struck home with me and really hit a note and a chord with me was this shit. Especially Test 1, this 12-inch here. They're on Warp, as you can see, which was huge. By this time, I was buying everything on Warp religiously. It was a big label for me. It still is, but back then it was like a religion. Oh my God, there's a new Warp release. I must have it. I must have it. I must own it. So this was happening too. This was what I was really excited about. This was what I was playing in the clubs, the Sweet Exorcist stuff. And then this album is excellent too, by the way. Spirit Guide to Low Tech. Awesome album. Kind of more in the dubby vein, kind of like a dub. I mean, it's techno music, but it's very influenced by dub, kind of jazzy in some ways. But I would highly recommend getting this. Spirit Guide to Low Tech doesn't really have the vibe that you hear on these. These are just like early bleep techno. In fact, if you're gonna wonder why Warp calls themselves Bleep now, you know, their online store, why they call themselves Bleep, this is one of the reasons right here. Bleep techno, Sweet Exorcist, LFO. That's what they called it. It was Bleep. You know, that name Bleep came from something. It came from releases like this, Test 1. Another great Bleep techno record was Tricky Disco. Does anyone remember Tricky Disco? They came out on Warp as well. Bleep, like late 80s Warp Sheffield sounding techno, Bleep. And he was from Sheffield, obviously, and Warp was as well. So it was an easy connection there for Warp, I think. Richard Kirk was in their backyard. He was from Sheffield. So here you go. Let me get back. So this is all kind of circulating, Sweet Exorcist and that Body and Soul album. So, and this is just to my memory, as always, I will try to show and relate what my experience was. But all within like a year and a half, all of this came out. Plasticity, International Language, and then the Western reworks. Sorry for my throat. I'm drinking coffee now, so you don't even want to know what's going on in my throat right now. But this is a remix album here. But he brought in people like Alternate and some rave guys to remix Cabaret Voltaire's work here. This is a great album. It's a remix album, but it's awesome. But more importantly, these two, Plasticity and International Language. These two albums are fantastic. And this is when I was full on Richard Kirk nut, was Plasticity and International Language. These two albums changed my world. I loved these records. I still do. This is also when I questioned how much Stephen Mallender had to do with the band. When you listen to Plasticity and International Language, like these are Richard Kirk albums. I mean, when you listen to what was happening on these two and then you listen to everything after, it's like, yeah, these must be Richard Kirk albums. Especially this one, The Conversation. That just seems like a Richard Kirk solo album to me. But these two albums were killer. They still are. Big game changers for me, at least. But remember, like when I was talking about my favorite period of Richard Kirk, look at how close together these all came out. This right here is my all-time Richard Kirk favorite, The Conversation. This is a 4-album set. And guess how much filler is on it? 0. Zilch, nothing. This album's over 2 hours long, and it's fucking phenomenal from start to finish. The Conversation easily is my favorite Richard Kirk related album. And it's Richard Kirk, isn't it? How much did Mallender have to do with this album? I think at this point, Kirk had just kind of broken off and started to do his own thing. But when you listen to The Conversation and you go back just 7 years earlier and you listen to the Code album, what a progression. I mean, I mean, there's an argument. I'm sure some people would say it was a regression, like he got worse. That's fair if this isn't your thing. But listening to the conversation and listening to Code, I mean, it's like a different band. You wouldn't even know it's the same guy. Like this is the same person? And that's one of the things I love about Richard Kirk. He was always moving, changing, changing direction, using new methods, new equipment, new ideas, new progression. Um, and change doesn't always just automatically mean progression. I mean, change can mean that you're getting worse too. And that's why the argument that maybe he was getting worse is there. I'm sure some people think that he got worse. That's fair, but I don't. I think his change was for the good. In fact, most times I think change is for the bad. Most people change just for the sake of change and it doesn't work out. I think Richard Kirk changed because that's what he had to do. That's what he felt he had to do. And luckily for us, that was a good move. The conversation's definitely my favorite. Now, here's the mind-blowing thing to me. The same year the conversation came out, he dropped this, Virtual State. Probably my second favorite, Richard Kirk. Virtual State is really just a brother or sister or both to the conversation, or vice versa. He did these albums in the same year, man. This is a double album. It's not a quadruple. But the 1994 was such an intense year as a Richard Kirk fan. Am I right? Conversation and Virtual State. I remember that year. Keep in mind, too, 94, you had all the Autechre releases, you had all the Aphex Twin stuff, you had Black Dog and Plaid, and LFO came out with Advance, and it was crazy. I know I've talked about this a lot on my channel, but trying to describe what this time period was in electronic music is almost impossible. It was so amazing. There was so much great stuff coming out on a daily basis. You couldn't keep up with it. You couldn't. That's why a lot of records came out in 94 and 95 and 93 too, where I just had to put them on the shelf and then revisit them years later because I just passed them over. There was so much brilliant stuff coming out. This is an excellent example. The conversation's over 2 hours long. Virtual State's like 75 minutes long. It's a lot of music to get your mind wrapped around, especially for me who likes to spend a lot of time with music that I like. I like to revisit it, listen to it again and again and again. This is one of those albums that I listened to almost nonstop at the time. As you know, I was busy DJing. I was balls deep in rave music and ambient music and you name it. The Orb. There's so much stuff. Underworld. There's so much stuff you can't even mention it. The mind boggles. This was one of my favorite albums of that year, and it still is. A wonderful record. Anyone who would ever make the argument that electronic music cannot be emotional and soulful, I would point them to Virtual State or The Conversation. Richard Kirk was a master at that. Like his music could be cold and distant, but that's what made it emotional, Like I think Virtual State, there could be an argument that parts of it are cold, but so what? It's supposed to be. He would juxtapose the coldness with like exceptional warmness too. I mean, the album's got all of this. Virtual State's one of my favorite records. Right up there with The Conversation. This early Richard Kirk solo stuff has never grabbed me that much. I know people really love this stuff. I think industrial fans really love this era of Richard Kirk's solo stuff. This isn't my favorite stuff. It's just my opinion, okay? But this is not music that I've really returned to that much over the years. This, oh yeah. Virtual State, I still listen to. I listen to it at least once a year at this point, but I've heard the album probably 500 times. I remember putting this record on after DJing all night. My ears are buzzing with house music and they're ringing from loud bass and drums, and I needed an album to put on just to relax and calm down, and it would be Virtual State or The Conversation. I mean, there are some up-tempo tracks too. In fact, The Conversation's a little more up-tempo generally, but they're very much the same. Virtual State, though, I can't help but feel, and this is probably just me being nostalgic, but I can't help but feel Virtual State is the quintessential Richard Kirk album, almost like the album he was born to make. I feel like it kind of encompasses everything that he was really good at. It's got it all. Just gorgeous melodies. It's got some house tracks. There's some techno. It's mainly ambient, though. Um, my God, it's a good album. Oh, it's so good. Number of Magic is excellent, too. And you can see he put that out the next year, the following year. Um, Number of Magic, I didn't like it anywhere near as much as I liked Virtual State, but I still love it. It's a much more straight ahead dance album. It's a little less, I don't want to say the word precious, but Virtual State's just a very introspective, beautiful album. Number of Magic is more like in your face, four to the floor beats, more of a dance album. And then he kept pumping stuff out. You can see this. I mean, this is just under his own name. You saw all of his other aliases, but this is all the stuff he was busily, releasing under his own name. This is a really cool album too, Loop Static. I don't think. Let me look here. I don't think he put this out on vinyl. Yeah, there's a 12-inch for this album. There's like 4 tracks from this album that he put out on a 12-inch. But the rest of the album was only on this CD, which I have. But the 12-inch has a song called All in Vain, I think. Is that the name of it? Let me look at this. All in Vain. Yeah. Oh my God. One of my favorite Richard Kirk tracks, All in Vain. He went nuts with the techno on that one. There's no ambience in this one. It's just like loud, dirty, abrasive industrial techno beats in your face. He's got samples swirling all over the place. All in Vain. Oh my God, what a great track. Yeah. And that is on vinyl. If you ever wanted to have that on vinyl, it's on a 12-inch. I think only 4 of these popped up on the 12-inch. Maybe 5? I think it's 4 though. Yeah, that needs a vinyl release. Guess I'm surprised. Touch was his label. So at this point in 2000, yeah, people were even people like Richard Kirk were stopping putting their stuff out on vinyl, which I think is a shame. I think it's a lot of reason why I haven't heard of a lot of these. Is like he would put out a lot of CD only releases, but anyway, I don't want to get into that too much. Virtual State, Conversation, absolutely amazing. This is my other favorite, and the album that I have behind me in the background, Closed Circuit. Idea of Justice is excellent too. And by the way, look at the year this came out, 1994. This is a 4-album set. Another 4-album set. So let's back up yet again. Conversation, 4 albums, right? Virtual State, 2 albums. Closed Circuit, 4 albums, all in 1994. And that's not it. He's got more. You thought that was it. No. There's more. He put this out the year after, Idea of Justice. Just a mere double album, right? But Closed Circuit's absolutely one of my favorite Richard Kirk albums, in the top 5 for sure. God, I love this record. It's so goddamn good. It sounds like Richard Kirk. I mean, this one's a little more dancey. If you're comparing it to the other things he put out in 1994, like The Conversation and Virtual State, it's more of like a techno album, but it's still got all the funk and the grooves and the bass, and it's a dance album. I would probably compare it more to The Conversation than I would Virtual State. I mean, the guy was on fire. I mean, he must have just sat there in his studio making music all day, every day. It's just what he wanted to do. And boy, the rest of us get to celebrate that. I wanted quick side note too. He was Acid Horse. I've talked about Acid Horse. Acid Horse with Al Jorgensen, Ministry, who I've talked about ad infinitum on my channel. I don't know. I don't know how much of a collaboration it was. I think the original track, No Name, No Slogan, was basically Ministry, and then Richard Kirk remixed No Name, No Slogan on the B side. I think that was basically the depth of the collaboration. It was a Ministry track that Richard Kirk remixed. The Richard Kirk remix is awesome though, by the way. It's like he did the remix as he was bridging the gap between Cabaret Voltaire and his rave stuff. He did that in 1990. So he's just starting to enter into the world of like full techno and electro and ambient. It's kind of an interesting little piece of his career when he did Acid Horse. Great remix. I love it. Just like a 9-minute electro mix, really. He takes Chris Connolly's voice and he kind of puts it through a vocoder so it sounds more like a robot. In the original Ministry version, it's Chris Connolly just sounding like Chris Connolly, but then Richard Kirk takes it and it ends up sounding like a robot. It's really cool. Great remix. Boy, let's look at. I'm trying to think. I don't want this video to go too long. I've already been going for over half an hour here, but another you can't ignore this too. And now let's look at the years too. Sandoz, 1994. I mean, come on. And this is his best album. I know I said early mid 90s is Kirk's peak, and it was. If you're going to put a year on it, 1994 was like, in terms of being not just a productive, but like a creatively inspiring year, 1994 was it for Richard Kirk. This is one of his best albums, Intensely Radioactive. This is a great fucking album. Oh my God, it's so good. And, you know, I'm not even mentioning the 12 inches here. All of this stuff. A lot of this stuff, this did come out on vinyl. This is the one that I have, this one right here. But there were tracks that he put out here that were only on the 12 inches. So, like, there are a couple, each of these 12 inches, a few of these tracks are on the album, but then there are a few tracks that are only on the 12 inch. So, if you like Intensely Radioactive, you need to have these four: Limbo, Dark Continent, Digital Lifeforms, and Chocolate Machine, because these do have different tracks on them. And I would highly recommend you get all of these, especially Chocolate Machine. But I mean, these are all amazing. These are all amazing. God, I can remember. I'm interested to see. I'm gonna just so. Oh wow, yeah. So, I had a feeling this was the case. I can confirm that $90. Wow, these 12 inches, you couldn't give them away. I remember buying these new from these labels. Like, they were like $6 or $7 a piece, and they sat in the record store. No one touched them. You couldn't give this shit away. The same with this. Now they're going for $100. Man, who knew? I certainly didn't know. I remember seeing these 12 inches sit in the record shop for several years after their release, well into the late 90s. No one touched them. And now, I wonder if his death, I don't know, did his record skyrocket after he died? I don't know. Anyway, that's another video. You want these. You want these 12 inches to go with this. They all go together. In my opinion, you can't have one without the others. God, this was I mean, look at this. Consider this. He put all this shit out in the same year. Insane. Insane. The guy was insane. Every Man Got Dreaming. That is not the cover that I have. I have this on vinyl. And this is, yeah, that's the copy I have. Yeah, look at this. $75. Great album. He put this out the next year. tribal, IDM, whatever. IDM. Give me a break. Ambient house. Yeah, tribal. There's some dub on here too. Richard Kirk was always kind of flirting with that dub sound. He recorded with Adrian Sherwood and all the classic dub guys and industrial guys. Like he was there. He was part of that whole package. Um, but intensely, and it's funny. I mean, again, I think I'm probably being very nostalgic, but all of my favorite albums are in '94. I would put Intensely Radioactive way up there. So maybe it's just that year. Electronic Eye, Conversation, Virtual State. It was obviously I'm being nostalgic. I didn't even really realize that before. I must be. All of my favorite things from him are in 1994. But you have to understand, like I was 21 in that year, you know. It's for someone who was soaking all this shit up. I'd been DJing for a couple years. I just turned 21. It was just a magical time. It was a stunning time to be a fan of this kind of music. Um, I listen. I'm not going to go into all these. In fact, I've never even heard of some of these. Agents with False Memories, to my memory, that was a CD only release. Yeah, I do have this. It's like one long track. Yep, yep, I've got that. I don't have a lot of CDs in my collection, but this is one of the exceptions. I mean, if I wanted to hear all his stuff, I had to get CDs. This, where's Nitrogen? He has another name called Nitrogen. Where's that? There it is. There it is. This, this one, Intoxica. Yep, and this didn't come out on vinyl. But look at this, a double CD, 1997. You have 2 hours and 21 minutes of music here. This is fantastic. The dude just that he made music. That's what he did. That's all he did. And it's all good. I mean, he rarely ever put out filler. And yeah, I'm looking at this list and Outland Assassin. I mean, I don't know of a lot of this stuff. My favorites, Cabaret Voltaire, Electronic Eye, Nitrogen, Sandoz, Richard Kirk, obviously. Those are my favorite related Richard Kirk albums. Traficante, that one I have. That's another CD only, if my memory serves. Yes, Card Sleeve, that's the one I've got. Yep, that's the one I've got. This is a really good one. 98. I'm telling you, in the 90s, and look at these songs, they're not short. I mean, it's not like he was just pumping out 3, 4 minute tracks and putting out albums every month. I mean, these were long, meaty tracks, tons to sink your teeth into. And I guess I'll end the video with this. I mean, this was pretty much it was his last solo album, and this is the version I have, so I'm going to show this. This is a great album. I thought it was cool to see him put out another record under his own name. It's too bad he didn't have more time to put out another one, but he gave us so much music as it was. We can always celebrate his massive catalog, but this is a really good album. Basin. Um, this was his last solo album, 2017. God, I can't believe it's been that long now. Again, time goes by fast, especially during a pandemic. And here's that loop static 12-inch I was talking about, by the way. Yeah, 4 tracks, all in vain. Yeah, this is the one. Um, oh, Porky cut it. Remember Porky? Remember Porky's Prime Cut? Pretty much every record you bought in the 90s had Porky's name on it. Um, Come on, Discogs, wake up here. Um, yeah, this is a master. I know he's dead. Maybe some people should say he was a master. No, he will always be a master. He currently is a master because we still have his music. And seriously, where do you even start? Can you see why it's taking me time to do this video? I need to get my thoughts in line. Even now, I don't feel like I've gotten them in line. I have spent so much of my life listening to Richard Kirk. really, I hesitate to say genius because I hate using that word. I just think it's a bullshit word. I think Richard Kirk was on another plane. He was on another level. He's one of those guys. Lightning in a bottle type guys. A once in a lifetime talent. This dude. And I still miss him. Yeah, I grew up with this guy. He was there since I was born. He was always around, and then once he died, and he wasn't that old either, was he? Let me get to a more recent photo. I guess, yeah, I guess he was a pretty reclusive guy. He didn't do a lot of interviews. It was rare when you saw him pop up in an interview, but he was a very soft-spoken person, very intelligent guy. Lots of political themes in his music. In fact, most of his music had a political theme to it. He didn't sing, but he used a lot of sampling. Very political guy. He definitely had. I mean, Electronic Eye. He kind of had a lot of his music had a kind of an Orwellian theme, a Big Brother theme. He was very interested in how people are being watched, how we're being tracked, how we're numbers in the system, how none of us really have our own identity, how we slip into these mindsets and frameworks that our identities actually matter, and trying to find our own true identity should be the end goal, when really that's all a framework in itself. It's all bullshit, really. And that appeals to me, being the nihilistic bastard that I am. I felt like Richard Kirk had that in line with how I see the world, is that, life essentially is meaningless. And it's it's meaningless because of one of these factors, because we are being tracked and scanned from the moment that we are born. And a lot of his political themes would dabble with this. Electronic Eye Closed Circuit is a great example of this. You'll hear a lot of these types of samples pop up in his music, where we're being reviewed by cameras, where we're being watched and tracked, and we're numbers rather than people, and we're being scanned, we're being produced, commodification, humanity getting bled out of the equation. It just gives his music that much more power. And that's one of the reasons why I love Richard Kirk as well. It also doesn't hurt that he was a master music maker, a true original, and I miss him. Those are my favorite Richard Kirk releases. I could go on. I've been going on for almost 45 minutes now. I should probably cut it. It's been too long as it is. That is my Richard Kirk video. I'm going to cut it. I love this guy, and I have been listening to him lately. There are a couple of producers out there. One that not so much in style or musicality, but in pure emotional feeling. Someone that I kind of think of as a spiritual brother or sister to Richard Kirk is Terry Temlitz, DJ Sprinkles. Both of these guys have the ability to make dance music, but make it a very melancholy type of feeling, a very melancholy atmosphere. And I hate comparisons, but I kind of think of Terry and Richard Kirk in that same world. They both have very clear political ideas and codes that they live by. And I deeply respect that. And that's one of the things I respected about Richard Kirk. So his music and his vision will always live on with me. I know he's dead. Let's see, how old was he? He was 56, 65. He was 65. I don't know. It's interesting with death, when you think of something being 65 years old, like if you picked up a bag of chips or a car or something, you'd say, wow, 65, that's really old. But the one exception where 65 isn't that old is age, right? Like you think of someone dying at 65 and you're like, wow, that's not that old at all. It's funny that the only time we ever think of that is when we're thinking about age of ourselves. But anyway, 65, really not that old, but it happens. He gave us a lot of music though. Richard Harold, I can't say his name. If only I could give a proper tribute by basically saying his name. Richard Harold Kirk. I will never forget him. Unless I get dementia, then I'll just forget about everything and it won't matter. In fact, sometimes I welcome that. Not being able to remember some bits of my past. God, that would be awesome. Pure bliss. But as of now, Richard Kirk is one of my all-time favorite music producers. I love the guy. I will always listen to his music. His music will always make me feel good. It will make me feel sad. It will make me feel melancholy. It will make me feel spirited and upbeat. I love him. And you love him too. And thank you for watching. I'm going to get out of here. Goodbye.